Come to order, and thank you very much for joining us today. The opportunity that we have to be together for this meeting will include two specific pieces of legislation that this committee will be handling. The first will be the Senate Amendment to H.R. 2028, further continuation and Security Assistance Appropriation Act of 2017, as well as S. 612, the Water Infrastructure Improvements for the Nation Act. The Senate Amendment to H.R. 2028 contains a short-term continuing resolution to maintain funding at the current budget cap level of $1.07 trillion until April 28, 2017. This legislation includes overseas contingency operation funds, including $5.8 billion for the Department of Defense and $4.3 billion for the State Department to support military efforts in the fight against ISIS and other threats that are being made against this nation, and to support the readiness of our troops wherever they may be in harm's way, in light and in darkness, and in heat and in cold, as they protect this great nation with their faithful missions that stand before them. The second bill under consideration, the Water Infrastructure Improvements for the Nation Act, is a comprehensive legislation that addresses the needs of American harbors, locks, dams, flood protection, and other water resources that protect our infrastructure that are critical to the nation's economic growth, health, and competitiveness. There's been a lot of work done on this bill also, and we're pleased to know that it will be before us today. This legislation follows the strong bipartisan reforms included in the Water Resources Reform and Development Act of 2014, and it adheres to the process Congress established in the 2014 law for oversight, review, and consideration of proposed water resources development activities of the Corps of Engineers. I'd like to welcome some of my favorite chairmen back to the Rules Committee today. Yes, sir, my big brother Fred Upton's going to be here. The gentleman from Pennsylvania, Bill Schuster, is going to be here. Rob Bishop, who has graduated from the Rules Committee, is chairman of the National Resources Committee. Among my favorite of all the chairmen in this House. You know that the work's going to get done when these chairmen show up. They've done their homework. They've worked on a bipartisan methodology basis. They're making sure that the best interest of the taxpayers is taken care of, but we're going to move forward with great exuberance to unleash in this great nation an opportunity for the American people to know that the people's work has been accomplished. So, before we go any further, I also want to thank the gentleman from Pennsylvania, Mike Doyle. Coach, thank you for being here today. If you'll please take this seat up here, we appreciate it. And before we come to you, without objection, anything you haven't ready will be to the record. Look forward to your testimony. We're going to defer to the gentlewoman, the young woman from New York, for any opening statement she'd choose to make. Gentlewoman, recognize.
The young woman couldn't make it today.
Well, you're here, Louise, and that's good enough for me.
And I have no opening statement. I just thank you as usual for your good work. Thank you.
Thank you.
And I will put Peter's statement in a little bit.
Good, thank you very much. Okay, look, she's not here yet. A lot of members are busy this afternoon, but we're going to also wish Virginia Fox the very best. These flowers that are here and in celebration of Virginia's years of service, not only to this committee, but also to the House of Representatives. Mrs. Fox will be leaving the Rules Committee to assume her own chairmanship. She will be doing this January the 3rd, but until then, she's going to have to put up with some flowers and some kind words. We'll wait till she gets here before we do that. I'm delighted that we're ready to go. So we're going to now open up testimony on S612. That is all about, I did ask the gentleman, Mr. Doyle, to please come forth, and I'll ask him again. Mike, do you mind sitting right there? Yes, we're going to share that microphone, though. You're into sharing today. Good. Okay, I'm going to first go to the gentleman from Pennsylvania, the chairman of the committee. The gentleman, Mr. Schuster, is now recognized.
Thank you very much, Chairman Sessions and Ranking Member Slaughter. For the record, though, I'd like to point out my colleague from Pennsylvania is the manager of the other team, not just a coach. So I just want to make sure that's clear. You didn't get demoted, did you, Mike? Okay.
If I can make sure you've got those green lights on.
Yeah, Mike.
Thank you very much.
Again, I want to thank the Rules Committee for considering SS 612, the Water Infrastructure Improvements for the Nation, or the WIN Act. This comprehensive water infrastructure bill includes Water Resources Development Act as Title I. And I want to thank Ranking Member DeFazio for working with me on WRDA, and the Ranking Member said she will submit his statement for the record. Appreciate that. However, this is a bigger than just WRDA. I also want to thank the Energy and Commerce Chairman, Mr. Upton, Chairman Upton, and the Natural Resources Chairman, Rob Bishop, for working with me. And this is an example of where we have shared jurisdiction, where we worked very well together, and there is no need for us to take each other's jurisdiction. We can come together and work together to get this type of legislation done. And so it's been a great pleasure working with these two gentlemen. And certainly want to thank our counterparts in the Senate for helping us, for working with us on this. I'm not going to describe the two chairmen's titles. I'm sure they're going to do it, but the WIN Act is a win for America because it includes the Water Resources and Development Act, which the House passed in September with 399 to 25. This legislation provides important direction for the Congress to the Army Corps of Engineers in their mission to improve our infrastructure. The bill strengthens America's competitiveness, creates jobs, and grows the economy. The WIN Act maintains Congress's constitutional authority to ensure our infrastructure is safe and effective, and I think that's, for me, one of the most important things, and I hope we, as we move forward in Congress, continue to claw back our constitutional authority so that it has to go through Congress and not just through the bureaucracies downtown. Following our reforms from the 2014 WRDA bill, we've increased transparency and we're empowering, again, the congressional authorization process. This bill contains authorizations for 30 chiefs reports, 8 post-authorization change reports for projects across the United States. All Corps projects authorized in this bill are locally driven, reviewed by the Corps of Engineers according to strict congressionally established criteria, presented to Congress for consideration for WRDA bills. These improvements are critical, local, and regional priorities that provide significant national, economic, and environmental benefits. For just an example of some of the provisions included in this bill that positively impact regions and states throughout the country, the authorization for the Everglades Port of Everglades, an authorization for Boston Harbor, provision pertaining to Kettewick, Man, a provision relating to the recreation fees in the Corps facilities from states like Georgia, North Carolina, Colorado, all benefit, an authorization for the Upper Ohio River, authorization for 2 Army Corps district headquarters that cover western New York and Massachusetts, an authorization for improvements throughout Texas, and many, many more. These and other WRDA provisions aren't just critical for parts of the country, they're important for the nation as a whole. In addition, the bill increases flexibility, removes barriers for state, local, and non-federal interests to help build infrastructure. This measure is also fiscally responsible. We deauthorized $10 billion, and we authorized just shy of $10 billion, so they're fully offset in the authorizations are. Further, the bill reduces the deficit by over $500 million. The bill also sunsets new authorizations to help prevent future backlogs. And the act pertains no earmarks. I don't know if I'm particularly that happy about that, but I needed to say it. Today's legislation restores, thank you very much, Fred. Today's legislation restores regular order. The 2-year cycle of Congress, considering these essential bills, this has been one of my top priorities. There were only 3 WRDA bills enacted between 2000 and 2014. I think that record is unacceptable. Every delay in regularly passing a WRDA bill places America another step behind our competitors. So again, next year we plan on moving another WRDA bill. This bill maintains our competitiveness by advancing crucial water resources infrastructure improvements, restoring regular order, and getting Congress back on that 2-year WRDA cycle. I want to thank my colleagues for considering this, and I ask all my colleagues to support WRDA and the WIN Act. I yield back.
Mr. Chairman, thank you very much. Mr. Bishop, I want to take the second and tell you that this committee has missed you. We're proud of the work that you're doing at Natural Resources, or at least most of the members of the committee are very pleased with your work. And we're going to give you a chance to defend that now the gentleman's recognized.
Thank you, I think. I think our section of this bill probably dwarfs the other sections of the bill as far as number of pages that are there. And clearly, Subtitle C is easily the best part of the bill that we are presenting. Okay, which happens to be mine. So the concept, obviously, is that water issues are extremely important to the arid West, but this is not just for the West. Of the 29 states that actually are impacted and helped with this particular bill, only 17 of them are found in the West, plus Indian country at the same time. This bill specifically goes back to help Native Americans by repairing or authorizing the repairing of their aged dams and irrigation canals. It finalizes Native American rights settlements in California and Oklahoma and in Montana. And it also has some land exchanges and transfers to Native American communities, which are successful. In addition, it goes to Lake Tahoe with some sound forest management areas that have been added into this particular bill. And it also helps other communities in the West battle the drought simply by authorizing storage and even local alternatives like desalination and water recycling. But the basic premise behind our section of this bill is simply, if the water's going to be raining down, catch it before it goes away and store it for the future as what is necessarily needed. I hope you got the idea that we have an Indian water settlement in Oklahoma. Want to make that very clear. All right. There also is the ability of doing some provisions in there so that if you have a Bureau of Reclamation project and you wish to pay it back early, it authorizes you to do that. That could bring up to $600 million yearly into additional revenue coming into the country if we simply allow that. And finally, the California piece of this has been negotiated with the senior senator from California, a Democrat who's in favor of it, as well as the majority leader from our side, who is a Republican from California. And they've been able to come up with elements of the bill that we passed, taking out many of the controversial parts and only things that were finally agreed upon by those two individuals, which is not a total solution to the problem, but is a very good step forward to it, and it does so without undermining the Endangered Species Act. Now, I say it does not undermine the Endangered Species Act, not as a way of validating and applauding this effort, but simply as a matter of fact. I would be happy to invalidate the Endangered Species Act, but this doesn't do it. It simply enforces it and reinforces what's going on, which means that section of it's been endorsed by everything from the National Council of American Indians to the Family Farm Alliance, and it's been vetted. I think it's a good addition to the bill. I'll answering questions when that time comes.
Mr. Chairman, thank you very much. Chairman Upton, I see you're joined by one of your colleagues, the gentleman from Pennsylvania, and I know that both of you enjoy the opportunity of being here today. I'm going to defer to the gentleman from Michigan first and then come back to the gentleman from Pennsylvania, who I believe has an amendment that he would like to seek this committee to move forward with. So we're going to have you wait for just a second if we can, sir. The gentleman from Michigan, Chairman Upton, you're recognized.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I'll be brief. I'm going to submit my statement for the record and just say a couple of things. First of all, this bill is fully offset. Second, it included a new program to provide grants to small and economically disadvantaged communities to aid in household water quality testing and general compliance with the Drinking Water Act requirements. And we have a new program for Flint. I know that we all care about Flint. And I want to compliment the efforts of Dan Kildee, our colleague, to not only bring it to our attention, but to actually see legislation now move forward that we think can reach the president's desk. With Mr. Kildee, he and I, you can point the finger at all levels of government for Flint. And we learned, sadly, that the EPA knew about this well in advance as well. And so one of the things that we passed on the House floor, and every member of this committee voted for it as a separate bill on the floor, 412-2, we mandate that when a federal agency like EPA is aware of water systems that are contaminated, that they immediately, literally within 24 hours, have to inform the governor and the state to let them know and not let it languish for months, if not years. That language is included in this bill, and I want to particularly thank Mr. Schuster, as we worked really well together on this to get it in the last couple days of this Congress. As it relates to the aid of communities like Flint, and in essence, it's a two-stage process. One is the authorization, which is part of this WRDA authorization. The other is the money, the front of the check. That's in the CR. And I want to compliment Speaker Ryan for continuing his pledge to make sure that there is the money that is going to be there. But we authorized $100 million in additional capitalization grants to state revolving loan funds to aid states where the president has declared a disaster related to public health threats associated with the presence of lead or other drinking water contaminants in a public water system. We authorized another $20 million for the creation of a lead registry and advisory committee at the CDC, and we also boosted the childhood lead poisoning prevention program at CDC and Healthy Start initiative at the Department of HHS. So in other words, what we're saying, what happened in Flint can happen other places, and we want to make sure that those communities are helped as well. And that's why our legislation, the Kildee-Upton bill, passed with such a large margin last February. Last but not least, after multi-year, multi-Congress effort, we're closer than ever to enacting reforms concerning coal ash. And this has been a continuing issue in our committee, and I'd like to say that Section 2301 provided for the establishment of a state and EPA permit for coal combustion standards. I can say with an absolute straight face that this was a bipartisan solution, and we are all glad that it's done. It's part of this bill, and again, I want to particularly thank Chairman Schuster for the work that we did together, and I look forward to speaking in support of the bill on the House floor, and I yield back.
Thank you very much. Mr. Doyle, welcome to the Rules Committee.
Thank you,
We are delighted that you're here. As a matter of fact, we don't see as much as we wish you would come, so the gentleman's recognized.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. Ranking Member Slaughter, members of the committee, thank you very much for considering my bipartisan amendment, which I'm offering with my good friend Walter Jones from North Carolina to the Water Infrastructure Improvement Acts. I think this is an amendment that will make a good bill even better. And let me just say for the record to my Chairman Upton and to Chairman Schuster, for the record, that I believe that Penn State and Michigan should have been in the Final Four.
Will the gentleman yield for 1 second?
Yes, I would yield to the chairman.
Remember, I was on the Super Committee a few years ago.
Yes.
That was going to be an amendment at the end. Both the Cubs and the Wolverines were going to be in the playoffs no matter what. So I would have looked out for you.
I just want the record to reflect that those two teams got hosed, and Ohio State shouldn't be in there.
You know, if they bring a resolution praising Ohio State, they better know the name of that ref to include as a provision in the title of that comedy.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, I'll get back to my amendment. Thank you. This amendment is very simple. All this is going to do is to codify the Buy America provisions for the EPA's Drinking Water State Revolving Fund, making them permanent. This isn't something new. This merely just brings them into line with all other federal infrastructure programs. Other clean water programs like the EPA's Clean Water State Revolving Fund and the Water Infrastructure Finance Innovation Act programs have permanent Buy America provisions. Other major taxpayer finance federal programs like the Department of Transportation's funding for highways, transit, rail have permanent Buy America provisions. The Senate voted 95-3 to make the Buy American requirement for the Drinking Water State Revolving Fund permanent. For some reason, that got changed in this bill to a provision with just a one-year extension, causing a lot of concern and uncertainty for our American companies and their workers. I believe this last-minute change undercuts our steel industry, our iron industry, our cement industry, and the workers that support it nationwide. Our country depends on good manufacturing jobs to support their families, and this amendment would give those families peace of mind. Chairman Schuster knows we watch commercials in Western Pennsylvania during this presidential election where our president-elect said that he wants to rebuild America's infrastructure and he wants to use American steel to do that. And I agree with the president-elect on that. We should be using American steel. Our tax dollars should support American manufacturers and help preserve these communities across the nation that are struggling. My colleague, Congressman Jones, and I both think that the workers in these industries deserve more certainty that a permanent extension would give them. We don't want to see our tax dollars going to buy Chinese steel, and there's overcapacity in the Chinese steel market, and it gets dumped over here below the cost of production. And I think it's time that most Americans would tell you if we're going to use our tax dollars to do infrastructure projects, we'd like to see us buy American steel. So, Mr. Chairman, this is a very simple amendment. It just strikes the 2017 makes this permanent, brings it into line with all the other programs, mirrors the overwhelming bipartisan support it got in the Senate, and gives our steel producers and our workers some certainty about their future. I hope you would take this under serious consideration, and I would be happy to yield to my good friend Walter Jones, who's my co-sponsor of the amendment, if he would like to add to that.
Mr. Doyle, thank you very much, and I would certainly welcome the gentleman from North Carolina joining us, and I apologize, I should have equated these two together. Walter and I rode up on the elevator, and he told me with great enthusiasm about his ideas that he felt like were very much in line with not only bipartisan ideas, but about American products, and the gentleman from North Carolina is recognized.
Mr. Chairman, I'm going to be very brief because Mr. Doyle told it all, and there's nothing else I can really add to it, but I do not understand why, with all the threats to our industry in America, with all the dumping that comes over from China especially, this is an opportunity for this Congress, with a new president-elect, no matter how you might feel about this president. He did make this statement: we're going to rebuild America, and we're going to rebuild this country with American products. And as Mike said, the American worker has a right to know what his future is. So I hope that this committee will give us a chance with this amendment to get it to the floor of the House and let all the members on the House floor make a statement for the American worker. So thank you for giving me just a few seconds to speak. Thank you very much.
Mr. Jones, thank you very much. I will take the first question. Mr. Jones, I'd like to personally thank you for your service to this great nation, to the men and women of the Marine Corps at Camp Lejeune, North Carolina. Day in and day out, every time you're up here, I talk with you about your commitment to the men and women who protect this great nation. I have no doubt that what you're trying to bring to us today is a Buy American product, and it is not just done with responsibility, it's done with the conviction of the kind of men and women that represent this country. I want to thank you very much. Gentlemen, I've acquainted myself with the package that you've got here. I appreciate your hard work. Mr. Chairman Schuster, I want to thank you for working with me and others. I think every single member of the House of Representatives has something that they needed to make sure that got prioritized. I think you probably had more requests than abilities. Needs always outpace resources, but I want to thank you for your commitment to this body, Republican, Democrat, friend, foe, whatever it might be, for doing your job, and I commend you for that. And I want you to make sure you tell your dad I said hi. Chairman Cole?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to begin by echoing your congratulations to all three of these chairmen for what they've managed to do here in very short order and accommodating some really important issues. Very parochially for me, obviously, the Chickasaw-Choctaw State of Oklahoma City water settlement is really a model of how these things ought to work, but we got that done late. It took us 5 years, but that's pretty quick for Indian water settlements. But for you gentlemen and the administration and our colleagues in the Senate to work together to incorporate it here at no cost to the federal government, but it will settle some real issues in my state that require federal approval, just because they've all signed off, and again, including the administration, still takes a congressional approval. So that's a big deal for us, and thank you for that. I also want to thank you. There's all sorts of provisions in here for some knotty Indian water issues. Pechangas have been up here for several years working to try and get some things done, and a number of other tribes. The definitional changes that allow tribes to be eligible to compete for projects or submit proposals for projects for historically impoverished communities is a huge change and a big change in the right direction. So I want to again thank all of you for working with us on that. And finally, I want to echo my friend from Michigan's words about the Flint settlement. I mean, I couldn't agree more, Mr. Chairman. You're exactly right. This was a failure at multiple levels, federal, state, and local. Our friend, Mr. Kildee, as you pointed out, has been absolutely tireless in educating the Congress about the consequences of this. It is something we all care about, and I commend the Speaker as well, I know, who made a commitment on this, and it took all of you, though, to honor the commitment. And so thank you for that. I think it's a really good piece of work, given, the challenges, jurisdictional and in terms of policy, and particularly you, Mr. Schuster, for having managed to get a second WRDA bill done when all of us had begun to despair that there would ever be one done, let alone two in 2 years, is quite a legislative achievement to add to your distinguished record. And again, my good friend from Utah, thank you very much on these Indian issues. You've really worked tirelessly to solve some really tough issues for us and let us be in a position. So I think it's a good piece of work. I don't have any objections to anything in it. I'm like everybody else. Of course, I probably have another list that I'd like to have in it, but this is really, really well done. So I look forward to hopefully giving you the kind of rule that you need to proceed with the excellent legislative effort that all three of you have made on behalf of a lot of communities around the country. And again, it's extremely well done. So thank you very much. You go back.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I want to associate myself with your words of appreciation for the breadth that this bill took. Thank you very much. Gentleman from New York.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, gentlemen. Good work. I'm particularly happy with the work you've done on the Great Lakes, the restoration. It's terribly important. It's important to many of us with small harbors that you have the 10% of money for dredging, which we hope means we won't have to beg on our hands and knees to get a little dredging money every year. And harbor maintenance, I think, which is terribly important, and the inventory you're getting ready to do on what it needs. And I certainly, before I get any further with this, I really want to say that I hope we do make in order the Buy American bill. I think it is really critical importance, and I'd like to do that. We're not really sure why you had it for such a short duration in this bill. There may be some reason we ought to hear about, but I'd like to see it made permanent, and we could put that in order. Also, we're concerned a little bit about California, mostly because we're hearing from so many of our constituents and environmentalists that it's a problem. But as long as I've been on this committee, we have dealt with California water. Am I right? I think probably the best recommendation I could make is they should move where there is more water. I don't see any way that we're, in as much as we cannot produce water, we can't manufacture it. But that takes up an inordinate amount of time here. I hope that doesn't sound unkind, because I appreciate they've got a problem there. But I surely do wish they could settle it in Sacramento, and I'd be pretty happy about that. The coal ash rules, I think, were good. I'm glad for what you've done for Flint, and it's very important that we won't have other cities with that lead problem anymore. Any lead that is bothering a developing mine is too much lead. So as to my friend DeFazio, the ranking member of Transportation, says that he will vote against the legislation, but we should vote how we want to, which is what we always do. He said the following language, quote, House Republican leadership stripped key Democrat priorities and airdropped in controversial Republican priorities to a point where the bill no longer represents the bipartisan traditions of the Committee on Transportation and Infrastructure, end quote. And we know the League of Conservation Voters is against, and the National Manufacturing Association and Chamber of Commerce support. With that, I will yield.
Gentleman from Georgia.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have the great honor of serving with Chairman Schuster on the Transportation Committee, and it's been a great delight. I thought about what Mr. Doyle said in terms of the absence of certainty having an impact on folks, and of course that cripples this institution. We get this idea that there's only one train leaving the station, and as you said, you didn't get everything you wanted in this bill, Mr. Chairman. But when you think there's only one train leaving the station, you end up fighting so much over that last seat. Nobody gets that seat on the train. This chairman said that he was going to bring back regular order to the committee, and he has done exactly that. And I can look absolutely everybody in the eye, Mr. Chairman, who didn't get everything they wanted in this bill, and said, you've got a chairman who's worked hard for you last cycle, you've got a chairman who's worked hard for you this cycle, and the chairman's going to be back working hard for you next cycle, too. It is creating a culture of success, Mr. Chairman, that we can benefit from, not just on the Transportation Committee, but all across this institution. I just want you to know how much I have appreciated what you have done, not just for me as a member of the committee, but what you have done for this institution by sticking to what you said you were going to do and making it something that we can rely on so that there is certainty for us and for our constituents back home. So thank you for that, and congratulations. With that, Mr. Chairman, I yield back.
Thank you. Gentleman from Florida.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. And gentlemen, I add my thanks for the extraordinary work that you all have done. I've tracked a lot of it with many of you over the course of time, and particularly Florida-specific projects, Port Everglades and the Central Everglades Planning Project, as well as the Picayune Strand, areas that I'm delighted that are being addressed, and I know that each of you have had your fill of hearing from us about it. On Port Everglades, I came here advocating that we should be able to make the necessary preparations for enhanced shipping in that area. And toward that end, I am pleased that we finally come to that position that the Army Corps of Engineers can stop studying and get on with the business of doing what's necessary there. A colleague of mine from Florida, Gwen Graham, is very opposed to one issue that my good friend from Georgia and I might be continuously concerned about, and that's the Florida, Georgia, Alabama wars. And I'm not talking about football here, just plain old, yeah. That war will probably be over for some years to come. But you will not have my good graces as long as they play Florida. I will be pulling for Florida. But the Florida, Alabama, Georgia water wars, Mr. Byrne and my colleagues, I'm sure all of us are concerned about. And I did hear that Senator Nelson and Senator Brooks of Alabama are upset with the inclusion of this language. And Ms. Slaughter has spoken to, and I echo the sentiments about the controversy over the California provisions. And that does raise some concerns, but perhaps, Mr. Bishop, you can help me if I address it to you. I may not have heard you correctly, and correct me, that you don't feel that this measure gets rid of or impacts in a negative way the Endangered Species Act. That's, then why do you think that certain of the senators are as upset as they are, such that they are making pronouncements? I might add, I don't care how long the other body stays here. I just want us to get out of here. But they're making statements along the lines that they would be opposing it for a protracted period of time. Have you had conversations with them in the other body to allay some of their fears?
Yes and no, and you said they're coming from senators, and that should have answered your question right there.
Well, up to a point. As a matter of fact, there's a split between the two senators in California with reference to the measure.
The key element, though, of this provision here, it's not the complete package that we passed in the House. It's a portion of it. It's a step going forward, which is a good beginning to try and come to a solution. And when you can get one senator and the majority leader agreeing to something, I think it's time to take yes for an answer.
I hear you. I am very much supportive of the measure brought by our colleague and good friend, Mr. Doyle, and backed up and also brought by my good friend Walter Jones. And perhaps either of you can answer me, why did we not go the route of the Senate, who passed the Buy America provision without a sunset? What's the reason for the 1-year sunset? Chairman Upton, yeah, you
seem to know the answer.
It just was the way that the members worked in trying to get it done before the end of the week. We had a lot of things on our plate. We had cures. Thank you again for your support. Just passed in the Senate a little bit earlier, 94 to 5.
Right.
We had an energy bill that we're working on. Rob and I were working on that very close. And I frankly like this way that we can individually vote on the amendment. I think members may prefer that versus having it included in the bill.
Well,
Let's see where members are.
I sure hope it's made in order. Many of you will remember that our former colleague of ours, Jim Trafficant, every morning he made a 1-minute speech and would talk about Buy America. He kept it that drumbeat going. And we're just coming off of a presidential election where the talk has been substantial on us dealing with Buy America. Nevertheless, I hope the amendment is made in order. I certainly intend to vote for it. And I thank you all for all of the work that you've done. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Judge. Dr. Burgess.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thanks to our chairman for being here today. Chairman Upton, congratulations on cures. I just got that on an email. What a great accomplishment. Certainly adds to what has been a very productive 2 years in the Energy and Commerce Committee under your chair, and hashtag record of success. It's a big deal, and we're all proud that that has now passed on the way down to the president's desk. I am grateful for the bill because there is a lot of stuff in here that's important across the country. There's one portion that catches my mind, Mr. Bishop. I guess it's Title IV, which is other provisions that follows your section, but it is out west, and that deals with the Gold King mine spill recovery, Section 5004. I went out to Silverton, Colorado, and witnessed what the devastation that was brought about by the Environmental Protection Agency when they lifted the roof or the bulwark off of the Gold King mine and allowed all that water to discharge into the Cement Creek and then the Animas River. Mr. Tipton was kind enough to help me get up there into the mountainside to see what it looked like, and that was a disaster caused by the Environmental Protection Agency. Clearly, they were in there with a backhoe doing something they had no business doing. And so I'm grateful that the funds are there to help offset the cost of the municipalities, the Indian tribes, and you spelled out who's eligible for compensation and how the proof of concept needs to go forward. I'm grateful for the protection of the taxpayer dollar. I guess my concern is that we are not offsetting those funds from the operational budget of the Environmental Protection Agency because they were directly responsible. And then here's the broader point. Yesterday in the Oversight and Investigation Subcommittee on Energy and Commerce, have 2 assistant administrators from the Environmental Protection Agency talking about how fines and penalties are necessary because of an automotive manufacturer who they thought had done something wrong. And now this is necessary to keep anybody from doing anything wrong in the future. So if fines and penalties are appropriate for a private automotive manufacturer, why in the world wouldn't they be okay for a federal agency that clearly outstripped its bounds and really caused a great deal of problem for everyone, not just in the Silverton, Colorado area, but all the way downstream through, I think, 4 states were affected by this. And I know you don't have an answer for that, but it's just one of the frustrations that we deal with up here. We'll hold private industry to account, okay, well and good, we should, but a federal agency messes up, and too bad, that's the cost of doing business with your federal government. I don't know if you have any observations on that issue, but.
That was part of the word of title.
Yes, sir.
And I don't disagree with you. Again, if they've done something, it's not something that we think we got into some kind of big debate and fight, and we just thought at this point, let's just move on, but it's something we should certainly review and move as we move forward in this 115th Congress, because you're absolutely right. They violated the law. Why aren't they held accountable like an automobile or anybody else would be?
Well, thank you for your attention to that, Chairman.
Can I just jump in on that, since it is in his section, but our committee is the one that did the investigation.
Yes, sir.
And did the report on it as well. And what you're saying is spot on. This is not the vehicle to do that, but you're spot on. They did it, they caused it, they knew what they did, they tried to cover it up.
Yes, they did try to cover it up. Thank you. Thank you for that acknowledgement. I look forward to next Congress to us perhaps holding them to higher account. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll yield back.
Gentleman yields back. It's time the gentleman from Colorado, Mr. Polis.
Thank you. Some of the discussion seems to be around the Buy America provisions and the duration. I mean, I was wondering if the committee did any hearings or work on those, and if it found that the Senate provision would drive up costs on some of the infrastructure, or there was some downside in terms of the either quality or cost of the infrastructure.
Not really, not a lot of attention. You'll remember that the Word of Bill, when we passed it in the House, I think it was under suspension, right? So no amendments, and it sailed through with almost 400 votes. We tried to equal a former chairman of that committee with, what, 415? Bud Schuster got what, 418? Somebody knows. But it didn't have a lot of attention, so it was a relative new issue for us. The Senate might have spent a little more time on it than we did, but at the end, I think, frankly, this is a pretty good process where we could offer that amendment and let everyone vote their conscience, and if it passes, send it to the Senate, where I assume that they would accept it too.
Great. Thank you. Yield back.
Gentleman yields back his time. Thank you very much. The gentleman from Alabama, Mr. Byrne.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I
Yes,
guess
sir.
I should apologize to the gentleman from Florida. I was intemperate in my remarks earlier about football, but I got carried away in the spirit of the moment. So I hope everybody will forgive me for that. And I say that with a representative from the state of Washington over here and a representative from Ohio State right there. So the football wars aren't truly over yet. I appreciate all three chairmen for the work you did on this. This is a hard bill, I know. I remember when we voted on it last time, it was hard then. I guess it'll be hard every time. But I know there are a lot of very important things that affects everybody's district, and there's some things in here that are very important to my district, and I want to thank you for that. I do want to speak in favor of two of the amendments. Mr. Hastings has already alluded to Amendment Number 2, which is Ms. Graham's amendment. The water wars between Alabama, Florida, and Georgia do not affect my part of Alabama. They affect the southeastern part of the state that I don't represent, but I do want to speak in favor of that amendment. And then the next one is the one that we've had a lot of discussion on, which is Mr. Doyle and Mr. Jones' amendment regarding Buy America. Let me just say one thing about that. China is producing more steel than there is total worldwide demand. Now, there is no market-based economy in the world where firms produce more steel than there is demand. There's something really funny going on there, and it's because the state, the Chinese government, is essentially backing up what they're doing to the detriment of everybody in the world. And I think it would be a very strong statement by the federal government of the United States to say, we're not going to buy your steel if you're dumping it and you're producing at that level. So I know that this is a controversial thing, but I think it's very important for both the American economy and the steel industry in the United States of America, and I support that amendment. And I thank you, Mr. Chairman.
I want to thank the gentleman. I also want to add that I believe I had told the gentleman that one of his favorite senators, Senator Shelby, from the state of Alabama, had called me and asked me to pay particular attention to this amendment, which I spoke with you about, and the water piece. And I do appreciate your consultation on that and your ideas, and thank you for your comments today. Thank you very much, gentleman. Yields back his time. The gentleman from the state of Washington, Mr. Newhouse.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I want to thank all of you that are here to bring us testimony on the Word of Bill 2 for 2. As far as I'm concerned, this is the way it goes since I'm a freshman, and I appreciate the model that you're setting forth. I particularly, Mr. Bishop, was interested in the comments you were making, being also a representative from a western state, the state of Washington, where we've also experienced long periods of drought, insufficient snowpack, having a very difficult time meeting our water needs for a growing population as well as industry. And so this is a particularly difficult issue, and one I think that the Word of Bill goes to good lengths to help us in the West, the arid West, I should say, bring some solutions forward. From reading what I understand the bill, and I just wanted a clarification here if I could, the WIN Act will authorize the Secretary, that's the Secretary of Interior, to participate in and provide financial assistance to develop new and expanded federally owned state-led water storage projects if certain criteria are met. And I think it additionally creates a new water storage account, yes, Mr. Bishop, that you mentioned, which is good news, for surface water projects which would receive this federal funding if the Interior Secretary recommends the project and the appropriate appropriations legislation is enacted for those specific projects. So my question is, are all states in the West would be eligible for these new funds, I guess, is the pertinent question.
Yeah, as I understand it, I want staff to correct me if I'm wrong, as I understand it, this applies to every state, or gives the possibility of it applying to every state, yes.
Yeah. So it definitely will go a long ways, in my view, of bringing some needed solution to, unfortunately, we have the term arid West too often used in describing the situation that we faced. And so I, again, appreciate very much the work that has gone on in many areas of this bill, but particularly as it addresses some of our western state problems. And with that, Mr. Chairman, I yield back.
Mr. Newhouse, thank you very much. When yields back his time, does any other member of the committee have a question? I'm going to break with, if I can, just for a second. We're joined by three distinguished young chairmen here, and I'd like to, if I can, make a presentation at this time to the gentlewoman from North Carolina. The gentlewoman yesterday was given an opportunity to defend herself. She chose not to. And again today, so gentlemen, just so you know, Mrs. Fox will be leaving the committee after many years of service, not only to our conference, but the entire Congress, and her honor and the way in which she has been very faithful, I think has really shown well upon not only her state, but also herself. And I would like for each of you to know she will be joining you next year as chairman. In Virginia, I want to present you with a gavel that you will be allowed to. You can make your own rules now, Virginia. You don't want people to talk more than 3 minutes, which is what the Democrats don't want to have. They want you not to allow anybody to talk more than 3 minutes, or you can go make your own rules. Yeah, it is. We gave you a heavy one because we knew you had a big bang to it. So, but Virginia, now I'd like to yield the time to defend yourself from yesterday. All the nice comments, gentlewoman's recognized.
Well, these gentlemen probably were hoping they would be allowed to leave.
Too bad.
But yesterday, I tried to express myself on a spur of the moment because we had a few minutes. But I want to say again, it's been a real joy to be on the Rules Committee. As I said yesterday, I came here kicking and screaming. I didn't really want to be on rules. Most people don't know about rules. I didn't know about it. But it has been one of the most educational experiences I've ever had. I am in the education business, and I like learning. So it's been wonderful. It's given me a chance to see so many members that I would not have had a chance to interact with otherwise. And that's sort of been I didn't say this yesterday, but that's been my life. I've always had a chance to be sort of in the middle of things and work with people across party lines and across division lines. So it's been really, really great opportunity. And Pete's a wonderful chairman. I wish we did have time limits sometime up here, but he is very gracious, and we all have a lot to learn from him in his kindness and his graciousness to other people and his respect for other people. So this has been wonderful for me to have been here and learned so much from Pete and from my colleagues. I wish I had the wit that some of my colleagues have. I certainly wish I had the expansive knowledge that some of them have. So I have a great deal more respect for members by having served on this committee. And again, members from all parts of our conference, as well as our colleagues on the other side of the aisle. So I thank you, Pete. And this is an absolutely gorgeous arrangement. You know, I love beautiful flowers, and this is lovely. So thank you. I will take this and think of you every day.
I think the committee had time yesterday to engage in anything they wanted to say, but if anybody wants to say anything, feel free. The gentlewoman's recognized.
Oh, Virginia, good luck and congratulations. And we'll miss you up here. You've always been a great addition to the Rules Committee, and we're very grateful for that, for your friendship. So best of everything.
Mr. Chairman.
It says I can come back.
Okay,
Yes, and we're going to, Mr. McGovern last night agreed to offer the first SAP when she's up here, the Statement of
Right.
Administrative Policy.
Exactly, yeah.
Comes up.
I thought he was going to be the first. I'm glad you explained that. All right. All right, well, best of everything, Virginia. We'll miss you.
Judge Hastings?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman and Dr. Fox. I'm delighted that you're going to, as I said to you on the elevator, be in your lane in education, and I believe the Congress and the nation will benefit from your wisdom in that regard. It's been a great experience. You and I don't agree on much of anything, but at the very same time, we've had some extraordinary discussions at times when you changed my mind regarding some positions, and hopefully I changed yours regarding some positions. But I look forward to working with you in the committee that you designated to go to. It is, without any question in my mind, the most important thing that we can do in this country, and that is provide for our children and the workforce portion of it, help as best we can to provide for jobs. I do say I'm a keen observer of not only our committee, but members generally. And Ileana Ross-Lathan and I take great pride in believing that we have some of the best constituent services in Florida, but I know your reputation, and I've watched you work, and you work harder than almost all members addressing your constituents, and I'm sure they appreciate you for it, and I certainly do on behalf of them and the rest of us. So good luck.
Thank you.
Mr. Polis?
Well, I see before me my two chairmen, so I'm excited, of course. I'll be seeing just as much of Dr. Fox. She is my new chair of the Educational Workforce Committee and Chairman Sessions, so this might be the last time I see you seated together there. But I look forward to serving under both of your chairmanships in the respective committees. And Dr. Fox, I look forward to continuing to work with you on higher education authorization. Hopefully, we'll be back before this committee with that at some point in the next session. That would be wonderful if we can accomplish that, and I'll look forward to working on that with you.
Mr. Chairman, may I make one more comment? Yes, I talked a lot about my learning here, but I should have said, I hope you'll be kind to me when I have a chance to come back as chair of the Education and Workforce Committee. Maybe I better ask that while I'm sitting on this side of the room.
Still got time to be nice to us, Virginia.
But it is a great honor to go to the Education and Workforce Committee. And I think Mr. Polis and I are in sort of a unique situation in both of us having served on this committee and both serving on the Education and Workforce Committee. And so it is going to be a delight to continue to work with him on that committee. So I'm leaving only because I've got
Because you want to come back.
a great opportunity to, as Judge Hastings says, to work in my lane and hopefully use my talents and skills there. Thank you.
Mr. Collins?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I was sorry I couldn't be here yesterday and had to step out, but thanks on the bill part for the chairman and the work that's been done on this bill. But turning to Virginia, I remember coming up here 4 years ago, and you go around and you try and find your committees, and you go talk to people and steering, and you find this, and I ended up in Virginia's office, and she's sitting behind her desk, brought me in your long and sits me, and I sit in front, and the classic teacher-student mold, and she begins to tell me, well, if you're doing this the right way, and have you ever considered rules? I said, well, that's nice, Ms. Fox, but I'm looking at judiciary, and he's like, well, just think about it. You can learn so much, and she began to just tick off, her passion. I think the thing that is amazing, and the chairman said this last week about team and a team player about her in this, but it's beyond even our side over here who admires and loves you. It's about this institution. It's about the institution of this hill that means so much to so many of us. And the passion that you bring and the willingness to sit down with someone who is trying to learn. I have to say, I told my chief as we walked out of the room, I looked at him and I said, what do you think about rules? He said, no, just keep focused, keep focused. I was inspired by what you said, and then 2 years later asked for that. It was come from you. It was because I saw the love you had for this place, the love for people here. And with that, the Education Workforce cannot be in better hands as you go forward. We'll miss you here. We'll treat you well when you come back. But it is just, I just want to say thank you for what you mean to me up here, and also what you have meant from day one, really, of my career in Congress. It means so much. So I just want to say thank you.
The gentleman from Alabama, Mr. Byrne.
Well, I too will be serving on the Education Workforce Committee with Ms. Fox. And I think she knows of my tremendous affection for and admiration. But I've watched her on this committee, on that committee, and she's a terrific leader. I'm married to a strong woman. I'm the son of a strong woman. I am the father to two strong women, and I've learned the two most important words in life: yes, ma'am. You'll bet.
Well, I'll tell just one story, and then we're going to get everybody moving down the road. But a couple of years ago, we were doing at the end of the year this package, and David Obey came up. David Obey came up in Virginia, decided she was going to take him on. She didn't like something, and she said, Mr. Obey, you have used your words incorrectly. And he kind of looked up like, who are you? And she said, Mr. Obey, you educate people and train animals. You do not train people. So whatever's going to happen over there at the Education Committee, good luck, because she knows that you educate people and you train animals. Mr. Upton?
You know, he had a reputation not Obey, but Obey.
Well, you will be Chairman Obey, then we will obey. Virginia, I think you see from the love of this committee and the love of your fellow chairman-to-be how much, not only how proud we are of you, but how much we want you to be successful. Good luck. Thank you very much. Thank you. Gentlemen, thank you for taking an extra minute to be here, and I hope you all have a wonderful day. Is there any other member that seek to be heard on the S612? Seeing none, we now will move, this closes the hearing portion of S612, and we'll move to the Senate amendment to H.R. 2028. We're expecting the gentlewoman from New York, Mrs. Lowy, and the gentleman from Kentucky, the chairman of the Committee on Appropriations, Mr. Rogers.
We didn't mention about Rob having served on the
Well, I did earlier. I said that Rob graduated. Yeah. Ms. Booth, do you see Chairman Rogers out there? I think he is too, but Mr. Chairman, we've just finished a big roast, actually, of the gentlewoman from North Carolina, Mrs. Fox. As you may know, Nita, Chairwoman Fox will be moving to be the chairwoman of the Labor and Workforce Committee and Education and Workforce Committee, and she was just presented with a brand-new gavel and some flowers, and it's Virginia Fox Day today at the Rules Committee.
Thank you, Nita.
We would welcome both of our distinguished guests to join us today. Mr. Chairman and Nita, I want you to know that we, with great admiration, welcome you here to talk about the Senate Amendment to H.R. 2028. Without objection, anything you have in writing will be in the record, and the gentleman from Kentucky is recognized.
Mr. Chairman, thank you for having us here.
We hope to be brief with you and answer any questions you may have. Let me first, though, add my
Is that microphone on, Hal?
congratulations to the gentlelady, Ms. Fox. We're proud of you. There's not a harder working member of this organization than Virginia Fox, and very few exceed her wisdom. So we're thrilled with her new role, and we wish her well in that effort. We're here to bring before the committee's consideration an amendment to the Senate amendment to H.R. 2028, the second fiscal year 2017 continuing resolution that we've considered this year. We're here before you to seek an appropriate rule to allow for the timely consideration of this bill. I've also submitted a technical amendment to correct a drafting error that I'd also want you to consider. This is a necessary bill, Mr. Chairman, that will prevent a government shutdown and maintain essential government operations, including national defense. This CR runs through April 28th of next year and hits the Budget Control Act discretionary cap of $1.07 trillion. This legislation continues current policy and funding from fiscal 2016 and makes certain changes to prevent serious harm to government programs and to ensure good government. We take care of our military by increasing resources through OCO and include provisions to accelerate production rates for certain procurement items that need to be addressed in the near term, such as the Apache attack helicopters, Black Hawks, the Ohio replacement submarine, and the KC tanker, among others. We also maintain funding for the Department of Homeland Security to protect our borders and our skies and extend the freeze on members' pay. In addition, this legislation includes $10.1 billion in overseas contingency funding to continue the fight against ISIS and terrorism around the globe, as well as $4.1 billion in emergency disaster relief to help communities across the country recover from recent natural disasters like Hurricane Matthew and devastating floods and droughts. There's also $170 million for critical health and water infrastructure improvements, which is fully offset. Lastly, the legislation includes $872 million in funding for the House-passed 21st Century Cures Act, including funding for FDA and NIH in innovation programs, as well as $500 million to respond to the opioid epidemic around the country. This is a good bill. It's the best path forward given our deadline. And Mr. Chairman, this should be my last time appearing before the Rules Committee as chairman of this committee. I wish it were under better circumstances. I wish we had 11 complete full-year appropriations bills to present to you, but that is not, unfortunately, the case. As I've said it before, and I'll say it again, governing by CR is no way to conduct our business. With a CR, we're wasting money and preventing good policies from going into place. We're creating uncertainty, both in our federal budgets and in the economy. And we're ceding our power of the purse, throwing away the voice of the people that we represent. But as I said, this is our best. It's actually our only path forward. So I urge my colleagues in the House and the Senate to pass it in short order, given that our current funding mechanism expires on Friday. Thank you for your great work. I've always, I started to say, enjoyed chances to be with you, and I have enjoyed that. But I appreciate the great work that you do, Mr. Chairman, and members of the committee. This is a tough chore that you have on this committee, being the traffic cop for all of the bills that go to the floor of the U.S. House. So thank you for your consideration of this bill, this rule, and the chance to appear before you today.
Mr. Chairman, thank you very much. I will take just a second now and say, on behalf of this committee, your service, your attention to detail, your work that you have performed so ably, not only with Mrs. Lowy, but the staff and people on both sides of the aisle, as well as your commitment to the United States Senate with dealing with them, is appreciated. I will tell you, it's lots of lonely nights. I know Cynthia recognized what you were doing, but I want you to know that you have ably not only represented your interest in Kentucky, but those of the nation, and I appreciate you very much. And we'll have a chance as we go around the dais to really offer our congratulations to you, but I did not want this minute to go by without saying, job well done, Hal.
Thank you. That's very nice.
Mrs. Lowy, welcome to the Rules Committee. We're delighted that you're here, and the gentlewoman's recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It's always a pleasure to appear before you. You are so gracious, and you welcome us with such enthusiasm. I always look forward to coming here with this distinguished committee. And I extend my congratulations to you, Ms. Fox, as well. I know you will serve with great distinction. Chairman Sessions, Ranking Member Slaughter, members of the Rules Committee, I really do appreciate the opportunity to appear before you today to discuss the second continuing resolution for fiscal year 2017. Although I am pleased to be here with my distinguished chairman of the Appropriations Committee, my friend Hal Rogers, but frankly, the legislation before us is an abdication of our responsibility for the entire Congress. It's a disgrace that more than 2 months into the new fiscal year, Congress will just kick the can down the road nearly another 5 months for purely partisan reasons. Having already failed this year to adopt a budget, to pass appropriation bills, and restore regular order, the majority's failure to enact full-year funding is not surprising, but nonetheless shameful. And as my good friend Chairman Rogers has said, I know how hard you worked, and we both tried together with members of the committee to move these bills. So it's unfortunate that we're here today to just push the whole schedule down the road, but here we are.
With a gentle lady, you,
I'd be delighted.
briefly, thank you for those nice words. We passed all 12 of these bills through the committee. 5 of them, I think, went through the floor. And then we hit the 60-vote rule in the Senate, which shut everything down. And thus, we're here for that reason. But I want to thank you for your service to your country and to this committee, and as a personal friend of mine.
Thank you so much, and I know we'll have many opportunities to do a lot of good work together. So I thank you, my friend, for those kind words. Several administration requests were either not included or were drastically discounted. The Commodity Futures Trading Commission would be frozen under the CR, likely causing staff furloughs and making it impossible to adequately protect market participants. I'm also extremely concerned that the majority included just $7 million, 1/5 of the amount requested by the administration and by New York City to reimburse for the cost of helping protect the president-elect until his inauguration. New York taxpayers should not be forced to foot the bill for the federal responsibility of protecting the president-elect. I view the amount in the CR, however, as a down payment. I'm putting the majority on notice that a future funding bill must fully cover these costs. And by the way, I welcome all of you to New York. Take a walk around Fifth Avenue, notice the barricade, notice the dozens and dozens of police that are protecting Trump Tower. And if you do that, not only will you enjoy our great city, but you'll become very aware of the challenge to protect the the president-elect. So come to New York, and I hope we'll be able to fully cover the costs of the New York Police Department in the near future. Mr. Chairman, I'm pleased the CR provides additional funding to provide for natural disasters, to assist Flint, Michigan in recovering from a lead crisis, to respond to threats abroad, to prevent opioid addiction, and I just want to congratulate the chairman again. He has been just the leader of this effort. I know this has had a tremendous impact on your district as well as all of ours. So I thank you for your leadership in that area. We are also so grateful to our distinguished chairman, Tom Cole, for your leadership in increasing the investments to biomedical research. I think all of us have family, friends, and neighbors who are struggling, frankly, to overcome a disease or to fight it every step of the way. And I know those investments make such a difference. So I would triple it. I would keep going, and I thank you for your leadership because it's so very important. But I must say, we should have made these investments along with a full-year bill that would have dealt with every government program. Finally, this bill should not include the provision that would limit debate on providing a waiver to allow the next Secretary of Defense to have been retired from active duty for less than the current requirement of 7 years. Civilian leadership of the military is a bedrock principle of our democracy. Any new standard deserves full debate by the Congress. And I just want to say, I know there are many who know this gentleman, who praise this gentleman. It's nothing to do with him. But there should be an opportunity in the Congress to really debate and understand the background and the candidates, but here we are. I know Chairman Rogers worked to have the Appropriations Committee return to regular order. I've tried to be a partner with him because I think the American people want us to do our jobs of keeping the government operating. Notwithstanding the constraints facing the chairman, the bill we consider today should be a bipartisan full-year spending measure. However, this is the bill before us today, and I look forward to continuing to work with my distinguished chair. Thank you for your time.
Ms. Lowy, thank you very much. Mr. Chairman, a few minutes ago, down on the floor, you and I had a chance to visit on several issues that were of particular importance to members. One of them was directly related to the issue of a relation to H-2B workers. Can you please elaborate on how your committee handled the H-2B worker issue in this bill, and perhaps some influence to members who would wish at another time to address this issue with your ideas about where to direct them?
Under the CR, what is continued is the ability of the Department of Homeland Security to process applications up to the existing cap, which is $66,000 for the current for the full year. What they cannot do is exceed the existing cap, and it would require a statutory change in the Immigration and Nationality Act to do so. We did not include an anomaly in the CR that's before you to do that. There was no request from OMB or anyone else in the administration to include an anomaly on the H-2B visa issue. Moreover, we heard from members on both sides of the issue, both supporters and opponents. When we included the legislative language in the fiscal 16 bill, there was strong bipartisan and bicameral support for a one-year fix to give time to the authorizers to address the issue in an authorization bill. That's where the venue for action is now, and we did not feel appropriate to take action on this huge policy change. especially where there was considerable opposition from the Judiciary Committee, among others. So we did not feel it appropriate to tackle that in the CR.
Mr. Chairman, thank you very much. I want to really applaud you for your forthrightness, not only of taking on issues that might be extraneous necessarily to the direct impact of your committee, but your participation to represent all of us. And I want to thank you, Hal, for being forthright about making sure our members get a chance to address issues, to ask questions, and to receive a straight answer, which is what I believe you and your staff most forthrightly did on the floor. And I want to thank your staff director, who personally was involved in this, and I want to thank both of you. Mrs. Fox?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You know, I subscribe to the same philosophy that I think the chairman subscribes to, that you can't thank people too much. So I think we should thank you both again for your work, and particularly Chairman Rogers, say amen to all the things that the chairman said about the difficult task you've had as chairman of this committee. And I appreciate also your forthrightness in explaining the H-2B issue. It is an issue where there are strong opinions on both sides, and we know that makes your job much more difficult to do. We do need revisions in our immigration laws. We need a lot of things done in that regard. And so I appreciate the effort that you've put in the past to help those employers who've needed help. But I understand this is not an easy situation for you.
If I could add briefly, as I said, the proper avenue on this issue is to seek action in the authorizing committee. As you know, the appropriators don't get into authorizing very often, especially on a contentious, big policy issue that needs to go through the regular process, and that's the authorizing committee, which in the case of the House is the Judiciary Committee. They're the committee with jurisdiction to amend the Immigration and Nationality Act, which is what would have to take place for people supporting this to get relief.
Well, again, I thank you, and I thank you for your being very straightforward about it. We all want to keep the government operating, and I understand the need for this continuing resolution, given the fact that we can't act unilaterally. I think I've expressed to you the importance of our having to explain to our constituents often when they throw around that term, power of the purse. There is a real misunderstanding out in the public that the House somehow or another has unilateral authority to pass appropriations bills. And so I'm constantly reading Article 1, Section 7 to people and repeating it to them, that they somehow or another forget that it says the House, that all revenue bills shall originate in the House, but the Senate may amend, and then the president has to sign. So I think we still have a lot of work to do in that area, because we still have people who think that the House Appropriations Committee can operate unilaterally. And I'm sure you would welcome some folks shadowing you for a day or two to see that you don't have that authority unilaterally, or things would operate a whole lot differently
Amen.
around here.
Amen.
So thank you for your good work.
Thank you.
And congratulate you on your opportunity to have a little more time to do other things other than negotiate. God bless you.
Thank you.
Gentleman yields back your time. The gentleman from Florida, Judge Hastings.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
Ms. Slaughter?
I now see, I want you to determine that order. You were walking in as I
All
departed.
right, all right.
Gentleman, Judge Hastings.
Mr. Chairman, just for information, I'm in my 12th term here, and I just asked for information. What term is this for you?
This is my 10th term.
10th term. Then Ms. Slaughter and I have been here the longest of the members on the Rules Committee, not necessarily the longest. I think she has at least a long time on the Rules Committee. But all of that time, and no fault of Chairman Rogers and Ms. Lowy, they have exhausted themselves trying to get us to return to regular order. And I take Chairman Rogers' point that matters leave here and get over to the other body, and somehow or another, everything bottles up. And then we wind up taking the bullets every 2 years from people because the allegation is that we don't do our work. Well, the simple fact is that in the time that I'm here, we have not done all 12 appropriations bills since 1994, if my recollection is correct. And so we've had pledges from Democratic majorities and pledges from Republican majorities that we were going to return to regular order, and we've had pledges on budgeting responsibility, but at the end of the day, nothing materializes. So I'll be here another term or two, however the Lord allows, and I'm no longer going to believe that we're going to return to so-called regular order. I just am going to give up on that because I don't see it happening. I don't see the other body changing very much in terms of their modality, arcane though it is, in my view. That said, Mr. Chairman, I join our colleague Billy Long from Missouri about the 2B measure, and I'm not asking a question. I just simply, Billy approached me, and I'm sure he did, other members as well, about the H-2B returning worker exemption. And so as how not to belabor things with a protracted statement regarding. I just lift from it, he says, suspending the returning worker exemption for the entire first half of fiscal 17 is contrary to congressional intent and will be devastating to many small businesses who rely upon this program to function and operate their businesses. And I happen to know he raises the concerns there in Missouri, and we have similar concerns in some respects in Florida. So, Mr. Chairman, with your permission, I ask unanimous consent to introduce into the record our colleague Billy Long's letter to me. Others may have received it, but at least I believe what he says is with great currency.
Without objection, that'll be entered into the record.
Thank you.
Thank you, Judge Hastings.
Then I'll yield back, Mr.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much. Mrs. Slaughter?
Should I wait till somebody?
We'd love for you to go.
Well, if you're sure you don't mind.
We're glad you're here.
Well, first, I'd want to thank you all for doing whatever impossible job you're able to do. I really don't know what's in there because it only came to my attention about an hour and a half ago, except what I've read in the press. And I have to tell you, I want to express some concern about General Mattis and a waiver for him. One of the most important tenets of the democracy that we are so proud to protect is that civilian control over the military. And Department of Defense has always been headed by a civilian, and with the exception that we all know about and have read about of General George C. Marshall, who had such important work to do after the Second World War with the Marshall Plan and other things, that they gave him this waiver but said at the time, don't ever do this again. I have not had time to see how this is written, the waiver is written, But I hope that it's not so inspecific that anybody who could be appointed to that job in the future, that the restriction that it be a civilian would be lost, because that's something far too precious for us to give up. So that, I have great concern about that, and certainly join into with what my colleague has said about Congressman Long. I don't know why the H-2B visas disappeared. There may be good and sufficient reason, but I don't know of one, and lacking that, I would really appreciate if we could consider his amendment to put it back in. And I have no further comments, and Mr. Chairman, thank you.
Thank you very much, Chairwoman. Yields back her time. Does any Republican seek time? The gentleman from Oklahoma?
I do quickly, Mr.
Chairman Cole.
I appreciate that, because first of all, I can't allow these all two members in Congress to come before this committee without saying kind words about both of them, particularly in the chairman's last appearance before this committee. He's not just my leader, he's my mentor and my friend, and nobody has served our committee with more distinction than the distinguished gentleman from Kentucky, and he has done yeoman's work in moving us in the right direction, not quite as far as I know as he wanted to push us back toward regular order. And his helpmate and partner in that has been the gentlelady from New York, who, despite their occasional differences over policy, don't disagree about process at all and what the appropriate way for this committee to operate is. And both of them have set a remarkable example of moving us. I want to really reiterate a point that the chairman made, which was all 12 bills have been reported out of this committee. They were reported out last year. They were reported out again this year. And in my view, they should have all 12 gone to the floor. It's great that we got 5. I think we got 6 or 7 last year. But that's not a decision that the chairman and the ranking member get to make. So they've done their part of the appropriations process, and they demonstrated last year, even if you can't get the bills across the floor, they could sit down and bargain an omnibus bill that gave us stability and funding for this entire year. We've actually had a pretty good year in Congress in some ways. I think the Cures bill is something we all work together on, and we're going to probably get this WRDA bill for the second year in a row. That's a big deal. The NDAA, the Every Student Succeeds Act, a lot of that was done because we had a framework set up, the regular orderly funding of government. Now, granted, it was done in an omnibus. It wasn't done the way either the chairman or the ranking member would have liked, but it was done. So it's unfortunate that they weren't allowed to sit down and work their magic again, in my opinion, with their counterparts in the United States Senate. I'll certainly support the bill. I mean, I agree with both the chairman and the gentlelady that allowing government to shut down and all the chaos and disruption that comes from that's just an inappropriate solution. And they've done the best within their ability to adjust within this CR things that will at least allow us in the military and some other areas to not have the rigidity of having exactly the same funding. And we had Chairman Thornberry up here recently. We were talking about the wonderful work that he and his ranking member had done on the NDAA, National Defense Authorization Act, and I made the point that as great as it was, if it wasn't married up with an appropriations bill, it's wonderful policy, but there's not the money to implement the policy or make the decisions. That's not your fault. That's certainly not Chairman Frelinghuysen's fault, who worked very closely with the House Armed Services Committee. That's the fault of not passing and allowing a normal appropriations bill to occur. So while I will support this bill, I'm very frustrated, as I know my chairman and my ranking member are, over us allowing this to happen. Again, this committee did its job. Congress did not do its job. The administration, my view, did not, and the Senate certainly did not. And frankly, I'm going to make a prediction now, which I'm loath to make, but everybody's going to regret that we did not do an omnibus, that we did not have secure funding. The new administration, and this would have been true no matter who won the election, has got a lot of problems on the table. They've got their agenda to advance. You've got to get all these people confirmed in the United States Senate. We're going to have a debt ceiling discussion in March. It would have made a lot of difference to have these things done and secured through September 30th of next year. I don't think anybody recognizes outside the Appropriations Committee, that's probably too strong a statement, how difficult this is going to be for the new administration. I know some people think it has advantaged them. I think it has disadvantaged them because they will be dealing with a whole host of problems that should have been settled and could have been settled by this Congress and this administration. I know it could have been because you did it last year. So I know you're capable of doing it. I think decisions were made above your pay grade, and certainly the pay grade here, that were bad decisions. They will guarantee us legislative and fiscal turmoil in the opening part of next year. I will make a commitment, which I suspect my good friends share. The danger will be by going to April 20th that we will just do another CR to get to September 30th. That's a big mistake. I guarantee you that our new Secretary of Defense, and we can have our disagreements over the mechanism whereby hopefully debate will be expedited, but I bet you the first thing he does once he's confirmed is go see the President of the United States and say, what in the heck is going on? I can't run the military sitting here operating under a CR. I can't start new projects. My funding doesn't match up. Well, we've done a lot of things to try and match the funding up. We haven't completely done it. I could give you several projects that you weren't able to deal with in this thing that we would have been able to deal with in a full CR. So that's, and you're going to have cabinet member after cabinet member going to the new President of the United States saying, what in the heck happened? I mean, you put me over here, but I'm sort of handcuffed, and I'm wrestling with a lot of problems I shouldn't be doing. So I hope that next year, I hope certainly by April 28th, we do a normal omnibus or a couple of minibuses and finish the 17 funding. I hope we don't go the CR route. I'm certainly going to push for it, and I suspect members in other committees, not just our own, will also be pushing. I know how strongly our friends on defense feel about this because they know how much it hobbles the effort to implement the excellent job they did on the NDAA. So, and it will put us behind schedule in working on the appropriations bills for 2018. It cannot help but do that. So this, you have done the best job you can do with the bad cards that you've been dealt, Mr. Chairman, and the gentlelady from New York, the ranking member, have been dealt. I'm very grateful for that. I don't know what more you could have done, and so I look forward to supporting your work. But we need to recommit ourselves to a normal process. It can happen. It should have happened this time, at least at the omnibus level. And again, I predict about 60 to 90 days into next year, people that made this decision will regret this decision and will come to you two and your successor, Mr. Chairman, and say, you guys got to fix this. You've got to clean this up.
Well, Jim,
I certainly yield to the Chairman.
To your point about the CR and how it hamstrings what the government can or can't do, what most people may not realize is, under a continuing resolution, the agencies have to spend the money that's in the old bill that they no longer need, perhaps, billions of dollars. And secondly, they're not allowed to start anything new, which is what they need today. They're locked into a year-old policy and a year-old set of provisions that they have to spend the money on, which they don't need or want to do. And in the military, and the DOD part especially, that's true, they cannot do new starts, even though they need it, and the troops in the field need it. They can't do it because it's a continuing resolution. So we need to pass these bills that we went through the committee with and amended and changed and argued and debated and negotiated. We need to pass those bills so that the agencies don't spend billions of dollars on old policies that are no longer needed and can't start new things.
Well, or postpone things that have been authorized but cannot be funded. I can give you the Paladin artillery piece. We're modernizing about 1.5 pieces a month. There was enough money in that bill to raise it to 6, which is what we need to do to move through. And they've done the authorization work, but you're still going to be funded at enough money to do 1.5 a month, roughly.
If we'd been doing these CRs back in time, our modern airplanes would be versions of the Wright brothers flyer.
Well, I'm not going to belabor this point, and I have, and I thank the chairman for his indulgence, but this is not the right way to do things. It's bad governing, it's sloppy budgeting, it's sloppy appropriation, and it's not sloppy through either of your fault. I mean, you both have made this point over and over and over, and you both have worked together to break the cycle. In the omnibus last year, we should have done that. We were told we were going to do that. This will all get done by the end of the year. There'll be a series of minibuses or omnibuses, and then magically, no, we're going to wait till next year. It's a mistake. So with that, Mr. Chairman, again, I fully support the bill, and I fully thank the chairman and the ranking member for doing what they can do to mitigate what was, I think, a bad decision. And they have done that in this bill, I think, as much as is humanly possible. But the authorizing committees need to authorize. They don't need to rely on the two of you, again, to pull their bacon out of the fire. And, if you're going to lead and govern, then you need to lead and govern. And you guys have done your part, but I think the rest of Congress has fallen down. So I regret that. Next year's a new year. We'll see if we can do better. And we know we can do better than this because we did better than this last year. Yield back.
Thank you very much, Chairman. Yields back to time. Mr. Polis?
Yeah, I wanted to just inquire about the status of a couple elements that I had hoped would be in this bill and are not. One of them is the Miners Protection Act. I'm sure you're familiar with that. I joined a bipartisan group, and this affects, as you know, tens of thousands of coal miners. It's been through before Congress for many years, and we did have a bipartisan effort to include that. I was wondering if you could comment on why that particular provision was not included.
Well, it is included, not the full version, but the CR does provide $45 million, fully offset, for the continued health care benefits for certain retired miners under the United Mine Workers Association 1993 benefit plan. Those miners will no longer have the benefits they would have had from the private sector due to their once employing companies having gone out of business. So this provision is necessary to prevent the loss of their medical or health care benefits for these miners and their families, which is scheduled to expire, as you may know, on December 31st of this year, a few weeks from now. So that is what is in the...
Yeah, it's just the patch for 4 months, not the long-term fix that was the topic of the bipartisan letter. So, I mean, what you have is you have all of this uncertainty for the tens of thousands of people that this affects, where it rides with our expenditures. It's at risk every few months. There's a battle every few months. As you know, in the bipartisan letter, we were hoping for a long-term solution. We will need to accomplish that in the next Congress. Yes, I don't think we want to have this very basic discussion about health care for coal workers that they've earned every single time we have an appropriations bill.
Well, if the gentleman would yield,
happy to yield.
This is personal to me because of my district. I have some 10,000 laid-off miners in just my district alone because of the coal plunge that we've seen. And I wanted to get the whole ball of wax, the pension benefits as well as the health care. I was unable to convince others to go that far. So we did get the health care benefits, which I'm thankful for.
For 4 months, right? Just for the duration of the bill. Yeah. The other one I wanted to ask about is the clean energy tax credits. I know that there was, I supported an effort to extend tax credits for large utility scale wind projects and rooftop solar beyond their expiration at the end of 2016. I wanted to inquire as to why that was not included in the final bill.
Well, it never came up. It never came up. And number two, that's a Ways and Means jurisdiction.
It is, but there's no other bill that I'm aware of that's moving. There's no other extenders bill that we're doing this week, I don't think.
It never came up.
Okay, and then the other one I wanted to ask about was the H-2B. There's a amendment that I co-sponsor along with Mr. Harris, and I just wanted to speak to the urgency of this in my district. I have a district that has a lot of tourism and seasonal tourism, and I've heard from over several dozen constituents today regarding the value of H-2B for American jobs, because these are our economy all works together. So I heard from Richard from Vail, who said that the H-2B program is critical for his company's ability to hire additional American workers in design and supervisor and labor position, because without H-2B workers, they can't hire those American workers, and the program really supports our local economy. So I'm hoping that the amendment will be made in order, and I wanted to ask the chair and ranking member if they're also plan to be supportive of the amendment if our committee makes that in order.
We discussed this, I guess, while you were outside on a telephone call. We discussed that earlier here.
Okay.
The provision was carried in the 016 Homeland Security bill. It had bipartisan, bicameral support at that time. That same support does not exist in fiscal 17. There is substantial disagreement among various parties, and there is not that bipartisan support that we saw earlier. It's a matter that has to be done by the authorizers.
I mean, you know, when we disagree, I mean, we in fact disagree on the underlying CR itself. There's going to be votes for and against it, I assume, from both Democrats and Republicans for different reasons, just as there would on the H-2B. So I mean, when we you know, it's easy to say we disagree. So the way that we resolve that, hopefully, is we can advance that to the floor, and then whichever side, you know, if more people support the H-2B, that would be included, and if not, it would not be. Is that I mean, that seems to be the way to resolve it.
Well, it has to be done by the Judiciary Committee, and there was substantial disagreement on that committee on what to do, and so we, in constructing the CR, the appropriators, you know, we can't make massive changes in policy without the approval, at least, of the authorizing committee.
Sure. I mean, the authorizing committee never didn't mark it up and bring it to the floor. So this would provide an opportunity for the members on the floor on the Harris Amendment to vote for it or vote against it, and we resolve our disagreements then, and one side prevails, and that determines what occurs. Maybe I can go to Ms. Lowy on that. I think I saw her.
I was just going to say, I wish I could say that there was unanimous support for it, even in our caucus.
No, of course. There's not unanimous support for the CR itself. Yeah,
So
sure.
in a CR and a bill such as this, where there is an issue, where there are very strong differences of opinions, you realize that there should be another debate, and perhaps whether it's judiciary or another vehicle, this would not be the vehicle for it, because it's not a D versus R issue. There's a lot of, as you well know.
Well, yeah, no, it isn't, but neither is the CR, right? There's going to be people voting for and against the CR, I would assume, on both the Democratic and Republican side for a variety of reasons. You know, H-2B, if the members of the body want to include it in the CR, that could affect a few votes both ways. It could affect my vote to vote for it instead of against it, because it's important for my district. There could be somebody else's vote it affects the other way. But I mean, I don't think most people view the H-2B policy as shutting down, a policy to shut down government over, right? I mean, whatever their disagreements are. So I would hope that we can have the will of the body articulate whether we want to move forward with the Harris Amendment, which I'm telling you is important in my district. I'm telling you would make me more likely to vote for the CR. I certainly understand there's people that would make them less likely to vote for the CR. But it's not, you know, kind of the tail that wags the dog. It's just one of these many elements. And while we realize we would like regular order on a wide variety of things, we just know we haven't had that. I mean, the other committee, Judiciary, is not marked up in advance of this bill before. There's a lot of provisions where it's traditional, and we are. This is a must-pass bill, just like WRDA is, and they're full of things we need to do. And for my district, this is an example of something we need to do, is my point I was making. I mean, it's very important for American jobs in my district, and it's absolutely critical to get it done.
Would the gentleman
Happy to
yield?
yield to the gentlelady.
I'm very curious as to why that was taken out. Is it appropriate to ask you, is it an immigration issue, or what would be the objection to it?
I don't mind if you want any help, Hal. Otherwise, I'll let you tackle that.
Yeah.
Well, it was not a part of a permanent provision. It was a temporary provision that was included last year. So what they tried to do was to take the permanent things that had been in the bill, then the discussions came up between the House and Senate, it's already been discussed, Republicans and Democrats, and the decision was made, this is an issue that we need to refer back to authorizers as opposed to appropriators. If it had been permanent, it would have prevailed. It was a one-time provision, I believe, that was in last year. So I've tried to look at this also because I wanted to make sure I could answer you.
Well, it
That-
seems to be
but I
causing
didn't know what the answer was
an
till
awful
I
lot of
asked.
trouble in various parts of the country not to have it. In fact, you consider it to be certainly a serious issue.
It's a big issue in my district because we have a tourism-based economy, yeah, in a big part of my district.
We are
so
not likely to have another vehicle that we're going to be able to get this on. Am I correct about that?
I'm not aware of any other
I
vehicle.
mean, if it's
do
not
it.
on this, it's finished.
Well, there's not been, there's a reason why there's an authorizing committee and an appropriations committee. The authorizing committee holds hearings and delves into these policy issues in depth, as they should. But to have this all of a sudden want to be funded, even it's not been authorized, goes contrary to our responsibility on
Well, I understand now what you're saying. However, from what I have been told, there was no discussion at all. It was there and then it wasn't. I mean, I don't believe anybody really has any.
And again, the reality is this is the end-of-year last
Right.
major bill. So things that need to be done in this bill. And in a perfect world, there's regular order for everything. In a perfect world, Judiciary marked this up and
And the
advanced it
Rules
before,
Committee
and
has all this power.
That's
here.
right. But we don't live in that perfect world, unfortunately. So unfortunately, we stand before you saying, you know what, jobs in my district are jeopardized if this isn't part of it. And I don't stand alone in that, and it's not partisan. There's many members who feel that way.
I don't have anything else to say, other than I happen to agree with the chairman, both chairmen. In this imperfect world, I would have liked to see the 12 bills. They may not have all been exactly how I wanted.
Well, we never have
I
that,
would like to see regular
neither.
order. For us to be taking up this CR at this point and include an issue that really wasn't completely discussed and really resolved in the authorizing committee is not appropriate for the appropriations.
Sure. No, I understand. I mean, it's
I
very.
wish I can give you a more profound.
Sure, no, and it had been included, as you know, and so that's why we're having this discussion. This is relatively new information, and we're trying to put it back with the Harris Amendment, bipartisan, and I'm hopeful that the Rules Committee will allow that, given that jobs are in jeopardy, and we don't often fall in the sort of regular order here. I know that we own, that's an argument of convenience rather than an argument of standard practice. And so it's an easy way to say no, but there's always a lot of easy ways to say no. So I'm hoping that given that we're not passing any more bills, we can include this important job-creating provision in this bill, and I yield back.
Thank you very much. Gentleman yields back his time. Does any member seek time? Gentleman from Georgia.
Could I just take
Gentleman, Mr. Woodall.
60 seconds to have our two witnesses end on a happy note? Mr. Hastings said he didn't think that we were going to get back to regular order. I shared his pessimism, and because of the work the two of you have done, I saw the first appropriations bill signed into law by a president of the United States before the statutory deadline that I have seen in my entire career, and it was for our veterans, and you all did it together. I don't know how we get to the finish line, where we get it all done every cycle, but I know we never get to the finish line if we don't have folks who are committed to getting us started. You did what hasn't been able to be done I believe for almost a decade. I think it was 2008 last time a bill was signed before the statutory deadline, and I am grateful to you, not just for the heavy lifting of getting it done, but for the model it set for what we may be able to do tomorrow together. So thank you very much for that.
Any other member seeks time? Gentleman yields back his time. I want to thank both of our members for being here. Mrs. Lowy, as always, thank you for your graciousness and charm. Please tell Stephen I said hi. Mr. Chairman, thank you very much. Tell Cynthia Merry Christmas also, and thank you very much.
And to you. Merry Christmas.
Thank you. Is there any other member that would seek to give testimony on this Senate amendment to H.R. 2028? Seeing none, this closes the hearing portion. Chairman will now be in receipt of a motion from the gentlewoman from Grandfather Community, North Carolina, to Vice Chairman of the committee, Mrs. Fox.
Mr. Chairman, I move the committee grant a rule providing for consideration of the Senate amendment to H.R. 2028, the Energy and Water Development and Related Agencies Appropriations Act 2016. The rule makes an order or motion offered by the Chair of the House on Appropriations or his designee that the House concur in the Senate amendment to H.R. 2028 with an amendment consisting of the text of Rules Committee Print 114-70, modified by the amendment printed in the Rules Committee report. The rule waives all points of order against consideration of the motion. The rule provides that the Senate amendment motion shall be considered as read. The rule provides 1 hour debate on the motion equally divided, controlled by the chair and ranking minority member of the Committee on Appropriations. Section 2 of the rule provides for consideration of S612 to designate the federal building and United States Courthouse located 1300 Victoria Street, Laredo, Texas, as the George P. Kazin Federal Building and United States Courthouse under a closed rule. The rule provides 1 hour debate equally divided among and controlled by the respective chairs and ranking minority members of the committees on Energy and Commerce, Natural Resources, and Transportation Infrastructure. The rule waives all points of order against consideration of the bill. The rule provides an amendment in the nature of substitute consisting of the text of Rules Committee Print 114-69 shall be considered as adopted, and the bill as amended shall be considered as read. The rule waives all points of order against provisions in the bill as amended. Finally, the rule provides one motion to recommit with or without instructions.
You've now heard the motion from the gentlewoman from Grandfather Community, North Carolina. Is there an amendment or discussion to that, gentlewoman?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have an amendment to the rule. I move the committee make an order and give the necessary waivers for the amendment to S612 by Representatives Doyle and Jones, number 3, which would make the Buy America provisions permanent for projects financed through the EPA's Drinking Water State Revolving Fund. And I ask for a yes vote.
Thank you very much. You've heard the motion from the gentlewoman from New York. Is there amendment? Is there discussion on that amendment? Seeing none, the vote will now be on slaughter amendment. Those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no.
No.
Noes have it.
Roll
Noes
call,
have it.
please.
Gentlewoman asks for a roll call vote.
Ms. Fox?
No.
Ms. Fox, no. Mr. Cole? Mr. Cole, no. Mr. Woodall? Mr. Woodall, no. Mr. Burgess? Mr. Burgess, no. Mr. Stivers? Mr. Collins? Mr. Collins, no. Mr. Byrne? Mr. Byrne, no. Mr. Newhouse? Mr. Newhouse, no. Ms. Slaughter?
Aye, to make America great again.
Ms. Slaughter, aye. Mr. McGovern? Mr. Hastings? Mr. Hastings, aye. Mr. Polis?
Aye.
Mr. Polis, aye. Mr. Chairman?
No.
Mr. Chairman, no.
Clerk will report the total.
3 yeas, 8 nays.
The amendment's not agreed to. For amendment or discussion, gentleman from Colorado.
Mr. Chairman, I have an amendment to the rule. I move the committee make an order and give the necessary waivers to the amendment to the Senate amendment to H.R. 2028 offered by Representative Harris and myself, number 1, which would allow the H-2B returning worker exemption that's in current law to continue for the duration of the CR. And again, I spoke to this briefly, but I couldn't argue how important this is for my district. It's important to have the stability. It does expire. It was in the bill. If without this, many companies in my district would be forced to cut their American workers. It would have a negative impact on the economy. By the way, for each H-2B worker, it's estimated that 4.64 American jobs are created and sustained. And we really see that every day in companies like Richards, where without the H-2B workers, there's no role for American supervisors and foremen. It's so important for tourism areas like Vail and Winter Park and Breckenridge and the areas I represent. So I hope the committee will make this amendment in order, and I yield back the balance of my time.
Thank you very much. And Mr. Polis, I want you to be aware, as giving myself time, that there were a number of colleagues who most respectfully presented not only their arguments, but that specifically addressed issues back home. I received a number of calls from Dallas, Texas about this. I've received a lot of information, and I do want to thank you not only for your feedback, but want you to know that this new opportunity that will occur next year, this CR is till April 28th, I believe.
Yeah.
There will be committee action that will happen as quickly as we get back. Judiciary Committee would be the appropriate committee to bring this issue up at, and I know that they would be addressing that issue with feedback from members. So thank you very much. Further discussion. Okay, the vote will now be on the Pulse Amendment. Those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. No.
Roll call, please.
A gentleman asked for a roll call vote.
Ms. Fox?
No.
Ms. Fox, no. Mr. Cole? Mr. Cole, no. Mr. Woodall? Mr. Woodall, no. Mr. Burgess? Mr. Burgess, no. Mr. Stivers? Mr. Collins? Mr. Collins, no. Mr. Byrne? Mr. Byrne, no. Mr. Newhouse? Mr. Newhouse, aye. Ms. Slaughter?
Yes.
Ms. Slaughter, aye. Mr. McGovern? Mr. Hastings? Mr. Hastings, aye. Mr. Polis? Mr. Polis, aye. Mr. Chairman?
No.
Mr. Chairman,
Clerk
no.
report the total.
4 yeas, 7 nays.
The amendment is not agreed to. For amendment or discussion, see none. The vote will now be on the motion from the gentlewoman from North Carolina. Those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed?
No.
Ayes have it, the ayes have it. Accordingly, the gentleman from Georgia, Mr. Woodall, will be handling this for Republicans,
And I shall handle it for the.
and Mrs. Slaughter will be handling this for Democrats. I want to thank the committee. We have no scheduled meetings for the rest of the week, or I believe the rest of the year. I want to thank all the members. We thank Mrs. Fox for her attention to detail. Best of luck. The committee is complete with its work, it appears, for the year. Yeah, thank you very much. I appreciate it, Don.